What's up? Welcome to a new video. And yeah, a new setting. I decided to come back to the recapping game with table that I used previously in my recapping. And yeah, so today we'll be recapping the Thundermans season 1. And yeah, a childhood show of mine, a childhood show of many people, and yeah, I know what you guys are probably asking, where are your Walking Dead videos? And yeah, the Walking Dead videos are coming. Like I still have to do the Fear Walking Dead. Now that Fear is finished, I'm gonna do Fear. Now Dead Cities season 1 is done, I'm gonna do that. And then Daryl Dixon season 1 is done, I'm gonna do that. All soon, probably after the recap for 4th season of the Thundermans, because now the new Thundermans movie comes out next month. I decided to go back and relook at the series that brought me childhood memories. So yeah, welcome to my recap. I'm Beckham, and today we will be recap to the Thundermans season 1 recap. So this season starts off with your traditional. Yeah, Nickelodeon just started off with their A plots and B plots. So the A plot is about. So it starts off at the Thunderman's family dinner, where Barb Thunderman just wants a normal family dinner, but then she tells Nora to use her laser eyes on the turkey. Then she grabs the forks. Billy grabs the lemonade, and Max who is my all-time favorite character, because I realized after watching this show for the first season or so, I realized that Max has to be one of my favorite characters. So he decides to grab the dessert. But Phoebe's like, no, Max, that's for later. And then Max says who, and then she's like, her, so let it go. And then they battle over it with their superpowers until Max is like, okay, and flings it across lets Phoebe win, causing the cake to fly across the wall. Billy says, wall cake, and decides to catch it, only for his father, Hank Thunderman, to grab him, saying, oh yeah, guys, we should totally use our superpowers. We should not use our superpowers at the dinner table. So then, what happens is, because I love saying so what happens is in these recaps, that it's like, so... He decides to sit down until he discovers he forgot his Peru hot sauce. So he decides to, and then Phoebe's like, dude, Dad, are you gonna go? You're probably gonna go get Peru to get hot sauce, aren't you? Thunderman, away! And then Max reveals that, bro, he had the hot sauce the entire time, and he just loves that joke. After the theme song, because the theme song is iconic, we see Phoebe getting ready for her night with Cherry. Cherry's Phoebe's friend, who is not too bright, but also Cherry's not one of the most intelligent people out there. Yeah. Max decides that he'll get Billy and Nora. He'll get Billy and Nora to hang out. He'll get Billy and Nora to build something with him. He decides to hang out in his lair. Barb remarks with, "It's not a lair if it has a nightlight," and that she wants Phoebe and Max to babysit Billy and Nora. As that happens, Phoebe's getting ready to go to Cherry's when her mom lightning strikes the door, and telling her that no, Cherry, you're not going to Cherry's, Phoebe. You're staying here and watching your sibling. They're obviously upset by this, and Max and Phoebe retort saying, "Aren't Billy and Nora responsible to take care of themselves?" We cut to Billy and Nora with Nora lasering Billy as she forces him to dance well, he's in his super speed. So yeah, so they leave, and yeah, so Max decides to basically have Billy Nora do whatever he wants. Yeah, it's Max. He's my favorite character, so I'll. So he decides to base. So he decided to get Nora to put. He wants Nora to put his initials on the moon because Max is that type of villain who, yeah, there's a right joke in the show where everyone thinks that Max is just going through a phase where his whole supervillain thing is just a thing he goes through, even though he tells everyone that he's the ultimate supervillain. It's a thing I love about his character. Anyway, Max decides to allow Cherry to come over and to hang out with Phoebe by texting as Phoebe. Phoebe tells Max that that's exactly what she would have written, and then he decides to go hang out with Billy and Nora. He tells Billy and Nora not to touch anything, but as he leaves, guess what? They touch everything, and they even discover Max's talking rabbit, Dr. Colosso. He becomes a major character later on, which I'll get to Dr. Colosso with one. He's important. But he tells them to just to put the blind over his cage, and that's it. Put his blind over his cage, and that's it. So anyway, Cherry comes over and tells Phoebe about her crush, Cole Campbell. Get used to him. He only has 2 appearances in the entire show. I don't know why they built him up as Phoebe's boyfriend, because after him, Phoebe goes on to have a couple boyfriends and barely even reference Cole Campbell's existence. Don't know why they created this Cole Campbell character if they were going to only have him appear once. Unless the actor, I'll get to Cole Campbell in the 3rd episode, but because he's a major character there. But Cole Campbell, he's Phoebe's crush. Cherry contacts him, but all we hear is Phoebe talking to him. We don't hear anything in Cole Campbell's voice. So yeah. So anyway, back with Billy and Nora. Billy and Nora are totally lasering Max's name into the moon. Then after that they discover a nose hair gun that can just create nose hair anywhere. So they go upstairs to fight about it while Phoebe's talking with Cherry. Phoebe gets enough of this and lifts them up, uses her superpowers to lift them up in the air in front of Cherry. Oh no. Cherry's obviously freaked out and is like, you guys have superpowers? Obviously, Phoebe's like, nah, we don't. But Cherry's like, how do you explain that? And she's like, yeah, there's a good explanation. Then she freezes Cherry solid. Well, Max frees Cherry solid. Phoebe says no. Phoebe says no. Phoebe unfreezes Cherry, tries to make them believe that Max and Billy and Nora were actually rehearsing for a play. But then of course they get into a fight. Phoebe uses her powers again, and then she freezes Cherry herself. Max says he wants to use his brain melt 3000 on Cherry, but Phoebe's like, yeah, no, bro, I'm not allowing you to use your brain melt device on my friend. So like, how we get out of this? Meanwhile, at the restaurant, we see Hank and Barb. Yeah, I guess this is the C plot. There's a lot of C plots and B plots in Nickel. A plots, B plots, and C plots. So at the party, they discover that the Thunderman, the person that they hired to become Thunderman, is not going to show. It's not going to show up. So what do? They decide to he decides, what does Hank decide? He decides to pretend to be the Thunderman entertainer, not without no one realizing that he's really is Thunderman. Thunderman. Okay? Well, this goes on until it just goes on. We never get I don't think we ever get a resolution. Meanwhile, what happens is that. Meanwhile, what happens is I love saying that. It's weird. I like saying whatever happens is yeah. So Cherry's still frozen. Everyone's freaking out. Everyone's freaking out. But that's when everyone's freaking out. But that's when the parents come home and they have to hide Cherry. They have to hide Cherry so much. Till they discover it. Max says that it was his fault. Then they decide to unfreeze Cherry by making her believe. Then they decide to hide their secret by making Cherry believe that they're actually they're actually theater performers, and everything that she saw was special effects. Cherry believes it, and Max calls her Orange, which is funny, and I love Max. Then Max calls her Orange. She says her name is Cherry, and Max says he doesn't care and slams the door. Then, as they're going, the original plan was them for all to move away, and I love Billy and Nora because they were immediately like, they were immediately gonna start packing. It was funny. Then Thunderman says. Then Thunderman flies to get more hot sauce. As Max discovers that Nora didn't put Max's initials on the moon. She put Nora Rules on the moon. Max screams Nora's name as the episode comes to a close. Wow, was that an episode? But now we're on to the second episode. Episode 2, titled Phoebe versus Max, starts off at a new location, Hiddenville High, where I guess there's doing school pictures. They're doing school pictures at Hiddenville High. Phoebe and Cherry are talking about this when Max shows up. Phoebe tells Cherry about at her old school, things were a little bit different as we see flashes to basically their school picture days were basically just them Phoebe having to take pictures in her super suit. Then we see Max show up, and Max explains that his things were just he would rocking punk outfits. So then what happens is Phoebe goes to sit down. Then Max says, "Hey Phoebe," and then a bunch of chocolate drowns on her face. Then she says, "Max." Then Max says, "Don't forget to say cheese," as then a bunch of cheese dribbles down Phoebe's face. So they're basically talking to Max about how could he do this and how could he basically ruin his sister's picture day. But Phoebe's like, "Oh yeah, I'll get back at you for this, Max." Yeah, that's basically the whole episode's plot. Phoebe and Max prank each other. There's also a gag where Max takes his phone away. He says that's his last phone, but then he discovers another one, and then they take it only for him to have one more hidden stash. They don't take that one, but they don't take his phone that way. So Phoebe goes down to Max's lair, where for some reason Dr. Clouseau is now allowing people to see him, even though in the first episode he didn't even want Billy Nora to. He told Billy Nora to close his cave, close it, hiding him. He's now able to be out there and open. It's weird, but yeah. So Phoebe says she's going to give the best Max prank ever. When Max discovers that Phoebe wakes up to Phoebe wakes up to discover that that Max somehow took her entire bed, placed it without her ever took her entire bed, placed it in the entire school hallway, and took it without her ever noticing. How? I don't know. That is impossible. Phoebe would have woken up at some point to discover this, but I guess we have to do the extension of disbelief that somehow Phoebe didn't even wake up that entire time. So, yeah. So Phoebe's ultimate plan is Phoebe's plan for Max is to dress up as his hero, Dark Mayhem, and basically allow him in the scuba suit, allow him in a hula suit. Then we get a plot about Nora and Phoebe teaming up to prank Max. Nora tells Phoebe, bro, why haven't you moved away by now? Max will get his revenge. They slid his slide. They put his slide in butter, but Billy accidentally slides down it, causing him to crash into his Dark Mayhem poster. Then Nora does it. It's basically like a whole. That whole thing. There's also a plot about Barb getting a book. She gets a parenting book, but because Billy and Nora aren't doing their chores, so basically she just gets them to basically create a trash heap, but she accidentally destroys her book. But she drops her book, causing all the trash to fall. So what does Hank do? He justifully destroys the entire book. He blends it up and says, "Hey guys, you want to have a word salad?" And they're like, "Sure." But by the end of the episode, it's revealed she got another book. And then she reveals that parenting books suck. And, yeah. Meanwhile, in episode 3, we finally get Cole Campbell's official debut. Again, he's only in this episode and in episode 12. Well, in episode 11. He's only in episode 1 and episode 11. And then he never shows up again. Phoebe moves on to other love interests, and even season 2, she gets a long-time boyfriend, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about him. But why does Cole Campbell only have 2 appearances? Why did they build him up just to less? So, yeah. So in episode 3, basically, they're discovered. So basically, Phoebe and Max's prank war was able to. So in this episode, Phoebe and Cherry are staring at Cole Campbell when Max comes up, basically making fun of Phoebe, saying about how would he ever fall for a. Then a hot girl walks by, played by Catherine McNamara, and basically Max falls head over her for her instantly. So yeah, so Phoebe decides to finally talk to Cole, and it's like, it's okay. She finally decides to talk to the man that she's been simping on, and they decide to basically, Cole reveals that he comes from a rich family, and he basically doesn't like his family, so he decides to invite Phoebe over. Phoebe decides to invite his family over for dinner. But what does Max... So yeah, so Hank first says no to this family dinner, but but then he changes his mind, and this devastates Max because Max doesn't want Hank to lift the no soups at home rule. So he decides to ruin this dinner for Phoebe and the friends before he can go and ruin it with the rents. I know I'm rhyming this one, just bear with me. Don't know I'm rhyming. So Phoebe learns that her parents are awful before Cole shows up, and it's very doshful. Cole shows that Hank and Barb show that they're very riches, but these family only have stitches. Okay, again, I'm sorry. Okay, back to the episode plot. Again with these rhyming where aren't rhyming, but anyway, back to the plot. Cole and his basically Phoebe realizes that her family are not cool, are not looking right, and basically, so they basically decide to dress up as rich people. Cole shows up, his parents show up, and who else shows up but his sister, Tara. Of course, played by Catherine McNamara. The girl that Max has been basically crushed on this whole episode. She's the one. And Max basically calls her the sandwich thief because, was that another show? But either way, I think it's another show. But anyway, yeah. So Max has to get out of there. He has to run before the party can turn into fun. Oh crap! What am I doing? I'm rhyming. This episode's so rhymeful now. Okay. Anyway, what is that? But anyway, what happens is that Max tells Phoebe about everything that's going on. Even the scorpions. Yeah, Max brought Beekeeper, the scorpions, and hot sauce. Nora is the chef, and she does not realize that that's hot sauce. So, yeah. She does not realize that that's hot sauce. That's hot sauce. So, yeah. But, so, he decides to slap the scorpions off of Mrs. Campbell. And, yeah, she freaks out. She tells them to leave. But they're actually saying they're having a fun time. So, yeah, they reveal they're not rich and stuff. And, yeah. But realizing that Cole's parents are awful, Max allows them to burp, which was very fun. Everyone laughs as Cole leaves. Tara agrees to call Max, but we never see her again. And yeah, agrees to hang out with Max, but we never see her again. So, yeah. So in episode... So in episode 4, what happens is that basically the... So, yeah. So basically, this episode has Phoebe is getting good grades. Yeah. And Max is getting terrible grades. So, yeah, Hank and Barb threatened to take away his lair. So what does Max decide to do? He decides to change his grades. But not knowing that changing his grades means that he and Phoebe are in the same honors class. Where who knows who else but Sarah, who becomes a major character in the show, obviously, gets a crush for Max. And don't worry, Sarah's obsession with Max doesn't end. She continues appearing in the series, and she continues to have this obsession with Max, but... So yeah, so Phoebe tells Max that basically So Phoebe tells Max that he's not very good at math, which infuriates Max. So he decides to basically prove Phoebe wrong by telling her that he's gonna now go hard in this math bowl. They get at the end. They get all the questions right. They get all the questions right. Max gets they get all the questions right until Max has one final question. It's time to time. It's half and half. But Max, he realizes something. He realizes that math isn't his thing. He realizes that math is more Phoebe's jam, so he gives her the lot. He answers the question wrong, even though he knows it's right. He answers it wrong, giving it to Phoebe. Phoebe obviously gets it right. They win. Meanwhile, in the B plot, someone is stealing Miss Hank Thunderman's newspaper. So it's up to Billy and Nora and Hank to discover who did it. First they capture Barb. She's not an answer. But then there's actually Mr. Colosso. He's been doing it, and he's been using the newspapers as his pooping ground. Episode 5, Ditch Day. Episode 5, Ditch Day, which is it's a day in the episode, and it's the name of the title, is where Phoebe and Max basically have to, where Phoebe and Max actually get along in this episode. They actually get along for once. And that's basically puzzling for Billy and Nora. So basically Phoebe decides to stay in school because decides not to school so she doesn't ruin her perfect attendance, because that's Phoebe's thing, I guess. And Max is there just because Nickelodeon knows we love Max and they want to have him in the episode as much as possible. So yeah, they're stuck with the teacher who just tells them all about her animals. She tells about her thing, Willie Bon Jovi, and about Max freezes her, and he's like, and then he's like, I know why he wanted to leave, to get away from her. And then Phoebe freezes her, only to then freeze her again. And then somehow somehow she's just frozen off screen. Unless I missed something where Max and Phoebe unfreeze her, she's never unfrozen. She just shows up. So Max and Phoebe decide to play a snowball fight and use their power, not realizing that there's a security camera watching their every move. So they decide to sneak in. Billy and Nora want to help, but they're like, we don't need your help. So they decide to team up with the teacher, who's again never explained how. It's never explained how she got unfrozen. She just is. She just is unfrozen. It's never explained. Bro, it's never explained. Never explained how. It's never explained how. So Phoebe finally gets in, and this is the first time, not the only time, where you do not mess with Nora. She basically tells Phoebe that, hey, she only help her if they bring them onto the scam. So Phoebe unwillingly has to bring in Nora, and they do. So they help them, and they're able to get the footage of the security camera. So in this job looks like for, this introduces one of my favorite all-time best characters in the entire show, Mrs. Wong. I wanted to get to this episode because Mrs. Wong has to be one of the most hilarious characters this show. But the premise of this episode is, Billy Max and Phoebe want new phones. Hank and Barb won't give them new phones, so they work for the best character in the entire show, Mrs. Wong. And oh boys, every time she comes on the screen in every episode I've watched of her, she is hilarious. They go and they're like, "Are you Mrs. Wong?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm just wearing the person with Mrs. Wong's face in it. Of course I'm Mrs. Wong." I love Mrs. Wong. Just, yeah. So Max and Phoebe go up against this guy named Tyler, who becomes a major character later. Goes against this guy who's named Tyler, I think. I guess he becomes a major character, but yeah. So basically, so they basically do a terrible job, and Mrs. Wong fires them. Meanwhile, there's a plot about Billy and Nora getting Hank and Barb stuck on the stacking game because Billy and Nora want to get in on the stacking game, so they give them a bunch of money. But once Hank and Barb say no, you cannot use your powers to win a competition, Barb gets hooked on it, and Hank obviously gets her into the competition. It's kind of it's not a good B plot. Like, I like the A plot because absolutely Mrs. Wong is hilarious. So they obviously get fired because they did terribly with their pizza. I love how Mrs. Wong fires Max and she's like, Ring, it's for you. You're fired. I love Mrs. Wong. I just do. I don't know who I love more, Max or Mrs. Wong. I love Max because he's a hilarious villain character, but I love Mrs. Wong because she's so cynical, but she's not like those other cynical anime characters, but she's a live action character, but like those other cynical characters. So yeah, eventually it's revealed that Mii phones were given to Billy and Nora because Storm Reed was in this episode, which I never got. Storm Reed from Wrinkle in Time. She had to go up against Billy and Nora, go against Barb, and she ended up winning. So Billy and Nora eventually got a bunch of money from betting on her. So Phoebe and Nora Phoebe and Max take their phones away from them. But again, you don't mess with Billy or Nora. So Nora lays with them, telling them if they can't have Mii phone, if they can't have their Mii phone, then Phoebe and Max can't either. You rock, Nora. So, in episode 7, we can guess, Phoebe is supposed to care for her teacher's Venus flytrap, but Max, Billy, and Nora want to feed all this bunch of stuff. Yeah. Also, there's a plot about. Yeah. Basically, one of the Also, the B plot is about Barb and Hank leaving the kids alone because one of the amazing Blob died. So yeah, and we also meet his sidekick, Blobbin, who becomes a major character. He returns in the movie, but Blobbin is a funny character. So yeah. So anyway, Phoebe decides to not look as something spills over her planet and kills it. So she decides to unwillingly have Max bring it back to life. But not knowing so, Max brought it back to life using growth hormones or growth elixirs. So now it's a big plant. Yeah, so they decide still want to feed it, but it doesn't work. Meanwhile, in the B plot, we see Blobbin. And Blobbin gets a bunch of money. Well, they don't get a yacht. Yeah, they were thinking that the Great Blob was his will was gonna give them like a big yacht or a big mansion, but they only got like a little stuff. Well, Blobbin got a bunch of cash. That dude is rich. So yeah, so they're able to turn the planet back to normal, and that's kind of, it's not a good episode, it's not a great episode. So yeah, so we get episode 8, You Stole My Thunder, Man. This episode has Jace Norman from Henry Danger in it, and his only appearance on the show, except for in Henry Danger, where he and Kira Costner reunite as cast members, because he would later, because there would be a Danger and Thunder crossover between the two shows, where Phoebe goes to Swellview. Especially if the number references, hey, Henry Hart, you kind of look like that guy Flunky that I met years ago. And but anyway. So Phoebe's running for class president. But all it takes for Max to say a bunch of stuff about what they really need for everyone to vote Max class president. So Phoebe's his vice president. So the big plan is that they decided to prank Max with a prank Max. They decided to prank Max. Yeah, his name is April. Yeah, they decided to prank Max, but Max. So Max says in Phoebe's prank gets Max injured because in the episode, Billy and Hank are buying. Hank doesn't know what to connect to Billy with, but when Billy reveals that he likes rocks, they decide to build a bunch of rocks in Max's lair, which accidentally causes Max to trip down a slide and break his back, which eventually causes them. It's a weird B plot, but yeah. So Nora's forced to tell Max Phoebe's plan, and he and Funky, who was played by Jace Norman, decided to prank Phoebe. But when they see that Phoebe really likes it, Principal Bradford, who is a major character, and I actually love Principal Bradford. For some reason, I actually like the cynical characters in the show better than the main character. I like the main character, but the cynical character is also good. He's the main principal that doesn't like any of the Thunderman kids, so he gets sprayed, and Max revealed that prank was actually meant for Phoebe, but he dodged Phoebe out of the way. So, yeah. And we never see Funky again. I'm guessing Phoebe gets class presidency back. We never reference that again. So yeah. So in Weird Science Fair, we get Max's gritty backstory. Actually, it's not that gritty. It's gritty. It's just that basically Max has always hated science fairs ever since he was a kid, because when he was a kid, his Dromatic melted his car, causing Phoebe to win. Phoebe believes that she would win anyway, but Max would have won anyway if Max's Dromatic didn't melt his car, didn't melt the toy car, but I don't think so. And Phoebe just exists in this episode to rub her metal against Max. So Max decides to team up against Phoebe and Billy against Max and Nora. But once Billy and Nora reveal that their science fair is kind of being taken over by Phoebe and Max, they decide to team up to prank the two and get back at them once and for all. Another episode where it's a hey, you shouldn't mess with Nora episode. And meanwhile in the B plot, Barb is into book club, I guess. She gets Hank into it, but Hank lies and pretends to score Barb's notes and pretends to know a bunch of stuff about the book when he's just taking Barb's notes from her, until Barb gets back at him and all the book club people turn against him. Again, it's another weird episode. Now we got crime after crime. This episode is only saved by Mrs. Wong. someone is a neighborhood vandal, and someone is a neighborhood vandal. And Mrs. Wong, Darcy Wong, played by Haley Shu, I think to Ju, I don't know his name. She's Darcy Wong. She's Wong's niece or daughter. She's here, and a bunch of they decided to form Crime Stopper. Crime Stopper. But when the neighborhood vandal, so Max takes the crime for being a neighborhood vandal, which strips Hank of his title, causing Hank to be a depressed man. But to reveal that Max isn't really a neighborhood vandal. He's just been learning how to ride a bike because a 15-year-old can't ride a 14-year-old can't ride a bike. Which is weird because he's like 14. He should know this by now. I guess because he's a superhero and he didn't have a normal life, he technically doesn't know. So, yeah. So, eventually Max comes clean. They're able to prove wrong. And in episode 11, Going Wonker, which is the final appearance of Cole Campbell. So, yeah. So, Cole and Phoebe are going from a date until Phoebe accidentally destroys Cole's flower. It's revealed that a comet's passing by, which will mess the superhero's power. It's one of those, the superheroes have to deal with each other episode. Yay! Yeah. Yeah, so meanwhile, Phoebe has to ask Cole Campbell on a date while also bringing up Max, which obviously annoys Cole because so Cole leaves and Sarah hits on Max, and eventually Phoebe's able to ask out Cole, and he says that once he gets back, he and Phoebe will go to a real dance, but since we never see Cole again, obviously that never happened. Yeah, Cole says that once he and family get back from wherever they're going off screen, he'll come back and he and Phoebe will have a real dance. But since he's never shown up again after this episode, doesn't happen. So in Restaurant Crashers, yeah. And also in Restaurant Crashers, and Hank tells his and Barb's anniversary. Yep, it's his and Barb's anniversary. Yay! And he bought Barb a car. He bought Barb a car. But he didn't want to tell Phoebe because Phoebe has she has an addiction. She has an addiction with telling people the truth. Yeah, Phoebe has an addiction with telling people the truth about what they're getting. So Max also he calls her Phoebe Tinderman. That is funny. So she only tells Max, Phoebe, Billy, Nora about the car. They get in a lot of trouble by getting food on the car, and then they get a bowling ball on the car. So they have to get the amazing Bob's sidekick Blobbin to come and fix the car. But he only has one condition: to tell Hank to tell Blobbin he loves him. Because previously when he called them, he just hung up with saying that Blobbin told Hank he loved him, but Hank blew him off and ended the call, which was kind of rude to think about it. Your cousin just wants you to tell him you love him, and all you do is basically be like, "Oh, see ya, Blobbin, bye." So Phoebe and Max basically have to somehow get to the restaurant where they're at, somehow create a fake message of him saying, "I love you, Blobbin," because Max has this random translator that can create fake words. Like, Max says about how he was able to take up something with cold in school. I always laugh at the scene where basically he says, "Excuse Max from coming to school. He has a cold." So, yeah. So they have to do that. They eventually dress up in a cow costume. Meanwhile, Billy and Nora are basically testing Blobbin's belly of steel. But it kind of has nothing to do with the plot, as against the plot that's going on. But they go, I guess, and decide, and they get him to say it by saying the Blobbin's vanilla, right? Which says, "I love you, Blob in." And then they basically just replay, like, saying, "Phoebe is a duty head." And then he says, "Don't say that." And they're like, "Okay, Mom, I go." So, yeah, so he fixes the car, but he changes it to Twilight Mist, which they didn't like. But when Barb sees it, she's happy with the color, because she tells Hank anything but red. So, yeah. So, yeah, Blobbin kind of did a good job. He tells Blobbin admits to doing it. He says he loves Blobbin, and Blobbin finally gets the thing that he... So, yeah. So in this episode, Phoebe unlocks a new power in Thunder Sense. Obviously, Phoebe unlocks Thunder Sense, which allows her to get in to any power. Meanwhile, Max immediately gets Thunder Sense, but of course, he lies about not having it so he can get Barb to do whatever he wants. And obviously, Billy and Nora find out about this and decide to get in on the pity game and get Max to basically pity them to get what they want. So, yeah. But when Hank fakes a badger injury from Billy, basically Phoebe's like, yeah, nah. So when Billy's actually in danger, she blows him off because of course she does, but then she actually realizes he's in danger and saves him. So Barb obviously discovers what Max did, questions why they were on his trampoline. He says it was Max's fault, they say it was his fault, and Max reveals hey, she did Thunder Sense the entire time. Then Phoebe's a clone now. Obviously, Phoebe's feeling undertasked this episode. So Max creates an exact duplicate of her, but then when he bonks her on the head, it becomes completely dumb. It becomes stupid. So, yeah, it becomes dumb. And Clausen says, "Max, I told you, if one bunk in the head, if a clone gets one bunk in the head, it becomes a driveling idiot." So, yeah. So that's the plot. Meanwhile, Billy and Nora are practicing for a ballet. Practicing for a play that Phoebe's coaching them on. Nora and Barb and Hank want to help them, but they obviously are bored out by them. They're bored out by them. They're bored out by them. They're bored out by them. Yeah, bored out. So, anyway, they're bored out. Meanwhile, dumb Phoebe, the dumb Phoebe clone, decides to basically go, and this episode was directed by David DeLuise, aka Jerry from Wizards of Waverly Place. That shocked me when I watched stuff. So I was like, wait a minute, Jerry from Wizards of Waverly Place directed a Thundermans episode? I would have never guessed that. So anyway, aside from seeing Jerry direct a Thundermans episode, which again I don't understand, which I didn't expect. So yeah, so Phoebe is forced to watch it when Max calls her saying, "Phoebe, your clone's out of control." And she's like, "You're only calling me when you did something bad." So they go. Max discovers it and discovers that dumb Phoebe is gonna go to the bake sale. So dumb Phoebe reacts with Cherry, and yeah, then the real Phoebe and Max get into a fight with her, only for dumb Phoebe able to capture the real Phoebe and goes off. So yeah. So at the show, Billy and Nora are dancing and having a teacher do the dance for them. When Dumb Phoebe comes in, she just pushes the teacher out of the way, obviously off screen because we never see the teacher recover. So that teacher's probably dead, but she pushes her off the stage, and Dumb Phoebe clone does this thing for her. They're like, why is Phoebe doing that? And then they're like, oh, Phoebe must have been cloned as the real Phoebe shows up. Real Phoebe does as Max take out Dumb Phoebe, and we never see Dumb Phoebe again. So in Have an Ice Birthday, it's Phoebe and Max's 15th birthday. And yeah, and basically they want to spend a bunch alone by themselves. So they throw a party at Mrs. Wong's Pizza Palace. Yes, Mrs. Wong is back. She is great. So yeah, meanwhile, the people is kind of boring this time. It's just about Barb and Hank realizing that with Phoebe and Max growing up, assume that they won't have good memories with their other kids, and so they decide to basically war Billy and Nora out with their parenting. They basically decide to wear Billy and Nora out with their parenting, causing them to watch plays of them over and over, and it drives them crazy. And meanwhile, in the A plot, they celebrate their birthday. Mrs. Wong, who is obviously my favorite character, shows up, and Max freezes Mrs. Wong. So they go out for a minute, only to come back and discover that someone has stolen frozen Mrs. Wong. That person is Kel Mitchell. Yeah, Kel Mitchell's in this episode, and he plays a dojo guy that actually beats Max up until Phoebe has to pretend to be their goddess to convince them to let them take Mrs. Wong. And yeah, Phoebe discovers that by the time they get back, the party is already over, and they decide to spend time with their family. So in episode 16, Nothing to Lose Sleepover, Phoebe is finally getting a sleepover, but that collides with Max's wrestling. So basically it's an episode where we get to see Sarah again. She's obsessed with Max, and it kind of doesn't go anywhere with the obsession time. She basically said, so Phoebe has all her friends over. They're about to watch the movie when Max steals TV from them. Phoebe discovers this and obviously freaks out. They decide, since Max won't give them TV, they decide to play life as a feather, stiff as a board, until Barb catches them. Obviously, there's a B plot to this episode of Barb where Billy and Nora get an indestructible toy that Hank can't destruct, keeps mocking him. But anyway, back to the A plot. It kind of doesn't matter because it kind of doesn't go with the B plot. Meanwhile, in the A plot, Barb discovers Phoebe using her powers in front of her friends, and thanks to the goading of Max, decides to put an ankle bracelet around Phoebe. Obviously, Max decides to break the ankle bracelet, but as they're playing again outside, the ankle bracelet causes Cherry to be lifted up in the air even higher until Max and Phoebe work together once again. And the episode ends with them finally destroying the toy. Again, the B plot was kind of not all that good. In episode 17, Pretty Little Choirs. We got Pretty Little Choirs this episode. So in Pretty Little Choirs, there's this girl named Allison who's absolutely destroying Phoebe with her music. She dumps she dumps her drink all over Phoebe's head. So Phoebe gets Max in to help them out. But actually, Allison is able to use her powers to make Max actually fall in love with her and to be her boyfriend. But then Phoebe discovers that no, she's not only one of Max's boyfriends, she's his tutor boyfriend. Yeah, she's only dating him so he can tutor her. And she has other guys she's tutoring with. Basically, she's cheating on Max with other men. Max discovers this, obviously heartbroken, and decides to team up with Phoebe to Phoebe gets the spot. Also, there's a plot. Yeah. There's a plot of Darcy Wong. And there's a plot with Colosso. Yeah, there's a plot with Colosso. There's a plot with Colosso. There's a plot with Darcy Wong and how they let Colossus go. They let Max and Nora and Billy accidentally let Colosso go and ends up in the home of Darcy Wong. But Darcy Wong only wants to discover how he can talk, but he ain't listening. So they decide to replace his bunny. They decided to replace the bunny that they have with her. Yeah, the bunny still won't talk because obviously it can't. Yeah, but meanwhile, up in vacay, meanwhile, in the penultimate episode of the season, when you're in Patient Dr. Thundermans, Nora is supposed. Barb and Hank decide to take Nora to a special school, which Nora has no interest in joining until these preppy rich girls come in, basically insulting Nora. So Nora decides to basically prove it to them that they can get into the school. Meanwhile, in the A plot, I said I mentioned the B plot first before the A plot. Basically, Max, Billy, and Phoebe are watching Billy when Billy accidentally hurts his hand, so they have to take him to the doctor. They decide to use one of Max's fake props to get the doctor, but when Max sees a needle, he faints. So they take Max for the ER and use a brain scan on him. So the whole episode is basically just like, oh yeah, they have to get the brain scan. Meanwhile, Phoebe discovers that Nora got into the school. Billy's obviously destroyed that his best friend would leave him, so he abandons them to go cry in a room and sulk about how Nora's leaving until Max is able to cheer him up and say, Nora will always be there for him, bro. So they basically decide to destroy the brain scan. They learn Nora is not going into the school, so obviously the status quo, and yeah. So in up in vacay, we get in the penultimate episode, up in vacay, we get a plot about the Thundermans and the Thundermans going to a place about Max, Nora, Barb, and Phoebe challenging Max, Billy, and Hank over which place they'll get to go for their summer vacation. go to their vacation. It's a big battle. It's a big battle. Boom. It's a big battle. Boom. It's a big battle. Yeah, also I forgot to mention that in episode 10, the neighborhood vandal was actually Darcy Wong. I forgot to mention that until now. I was going to mention that, but I had to remember that Darcy Wong has made 2 appearances so far. This is just my copy. But anyway, in this episode, the thundermans are able to win, and they actually decide to go to the beach until Phoebe sees a hot guy, and they regret their decision. So in the finale of the season, Breaking Dad, Max is that Phoebe and Max are in the class with Dr. Boudet, who gives Phoebe a B. Phoebe says why she's supposed to get an A, but the teacher reveals he never gives A to any of his students. So yeah, so when Dr. Boudet is fired, Hank is actually the one acquired to the job. Meanwhile, Max creates a turkey because Max wants to be reminded and all, wants to rule the world because remember, say it with me, Max is a super villain. So yeah, he basically does this whole evil thing until Hank actually eats one of Max's turkeys. Phoebe wants to. So realizing how bad her dad is at his teaching job, he says about how he's not going to give Phoebe her A if she has to earn it. So Phoebe decides to transfer out of his class. Until Max gives him till he takes one of Max's cold turkey sandwiches, falling asleep, and then Phoebe and Max have to basically do some chemical explosions in front of everyone to basically win. So Hank is able to not. I guess Hank is fired off screen. I don't know, but that's a very lackluster way to end your finale. Hank just saying, yeah, he'd rather not take a job at a. And in episode 18, Billy said about how they'd all go to med school. How literally they're in that doctor situation to get Max's brain scan. Billy says that they meet each other in 12 years. I know that Billy's not the smartest character in the entire show, but I don't think it would take you 12 years. But anyway, that's the end of Thunderman Season 1. Wow, what a way to end. And it's not the best way to end your season. Nothing's big. It's just hey, he doesn't actually want to take his actual license to get a real life teaching license, so they can't stick to this whole him being a teacher for the remainder of the series. But it's a weird way to end your. It's a weird way to end your first season on that. I know we have 3 more seasons left, but that's a weird way to end your season with But yeah, that's the end of my review of the first season. That's on my recap. It feels so good to do recaps again. I haven't done a recap in a while, so it just feels good to get back to recaps. I think my favorite standouts for season 1 are Mrs. Wong and Max. Mrs. Wong is just cynical and hilarious, and Max is a villain and he's hilarious. Yeah. Next season we have a Phoebe love interest, a hauntingly crossover, and at the end we have a new family member joining the cast. So who knows what will happen at the end of season. Season 1's finale may have been a bit not that good, but season 2's finale, A Hero Is Born, brings a little bit of a shakeup to the status quo of the show and to the main cast. So, what will happen in season 2? Will I actually is a new space? Yes, it is, because I want to have a poster. Posters. Well, but anyway, and also my cat. But anyway, yeah, this was the end of this video, and we'll see you next time when we laser, super speed, and fly to Superman to Thunderman Season 2. Also, when we're done season 4, when the movie comes out, I'll obviously do a recap for the movie, because I'm super hyped for the Thunderman's Return movie, taking place 3 years after the ending of the show, even though it's been like 10 years since the show started, and this movie takes place 3 years after it ended. And the actors are all aged up, but the only actors I buy that are aged up are Phoebe, Max, Hank, and Barb. Literally, Nora, Billy, and the mysterious Thunderman kid, which I'm not going to mention until we get to her end of season reveal, are all different. But anyway, that's it for this video. See you next time for season 2 of the Thundermans.